All right, so my name is Maribel Diaz, and I am doing my screencast on Spanish for Heritage. Now, this is set up kind of differently. So, Google Classroom is releasing this, or Google, I should say, is releasing this new update. So, you're going to be able to organize your information a little bit differently, and I asked to be a part of like the beta version. So, I wanted to test this out to see what I liked, disliked, and then provide them with feedback, so which is kind of nice. So you'll notice that the stream, it looks like this, right? So like it's not as crazy, as hectic as like maybe this one. So this is where everything used to be. But now it looks like this. So it's nice. Now everything's going to be, it looks like everything's going to be organized under classwork, which again is nice. Now I put important class information at the very top and then added the syllabus and daily agenda. I don't use, or I have not used the Google Calendar. Maybe I will, but for now I just have a rolling doc. So basically I type in like, today's Monday, blah, 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 and then Tuesday, and then Wednesday. And I just kind of keep doing that. I'll add links on there if students need to access specific work. I don't know, it's been pretty helpful. So I'm probably just going to keep it, but who knows. So the three modules that I focused or decided to do, I know we're all just supposed to do two, but I kind of like split one of them up. I have the geography of Mexico. I have Mexico's national anthem, and then the indigenous languages of the Mexican people. So, to begin, normally I do a bell ringer every single day, and the bell ringers can consist of translating a sentence. It could be like reinforcing grammar, things like that. Now, in this case, since it's most likely going to be used in the beginning of the school year, their bell ringer is to do a quick little "Where are you from?" Now, I did a Padlet, so the students are to go on here. And they're supposed to answer where they are from and where their moms or dads are from, maybe their cousins, whoever like they want to name. It's totally fine. I did a little information about myself, where I am from, or where I was born, where my mom was born, and where my dad was born. So then I asked them, again, tell me about you and your family. Where were you born? Where were your parents born? Again, they can talk about anyone else, though, if they don't feel uncomfortable talking about their parents. Then they also have to go through the Padlet, which obviously you can't right now. And they are supposed to find someone else whose parents are or family members are from the same area as their parents or family members. So for example, if I'm from, my mom is from Mazatlan, Sinaloa, if another student is like, oh yeah, my dad's from Sinaloa, they could just type in, hey, my dad is from Sinaloa. Nothing crazy, it's day one. I'm not going to make them cry yet. Okay, so that's the bell ringer. The next thing would be just kind of trying to build the connections and the relationships with the students. I wanted them, so they're going to be receiving a blank map of Mexico. And what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to go back to this Padlet and find like, hey, Ms. Diaz's dad is from Durango. So they would go, Durango's right here. And on their paper, they would write down in Durango, Ms. Diaz, so that they know that I have a family member that comes from Durango. Same thing for Sinaloa. These get kind of crazy, but there should be more than enough room. Now, the issue that I might face with this is the fact that I might have students that are from Puerto Rico, for example, or the Dominican Republic, or maybe Argentina. Well, the focus for Heritage 1 is just Mexico, and then the different influences that these other countries have had on Mexico, but it is just Mexico. But I will still obviously provide like a map, for example, for students that are from Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, so on. But that again is kind of just so that we can, when we refer to the map, like if I say, oh, like in Durango, they tend to make, enchiladas that are sweet rather than spicy. So they would, if, when we're referring to this map throughout the year, they would know that in Durango, Ms. Diaz can probably tell us a little bit more about how these, enchiladas are sweet and they're made with chocolate rather than, chiles. So hopefully it's kind of cool. The next thing would be a true or false activity. Now, the point of this little module is for students to actually become familiar with the states and like their location. So they should be able to label a map. but not necessarily the entire map because they're going to have basically the entire school year to do that. I don't want them to feel rushed, and I don't want this to feel forced because I'm sure that a lot of us were forced to learn the states and we can't recall that anymore, or you can recall it but you don't know necessarily the specific location of every state. So I don't want them to feel super overwhelmed, but so for this activity they are allowed to have their map in front of them, because it is a listening activity and it requires, like, I don't want to be like, oh, just memorize it and then listen, like that's a little too much. But they should have their map in front of them and they're listening to the activity. Now it's an ed puzzle, so I would do like a little intro. Now the nice thing about this is that Edpuzzle kind of allows you to like add little pauses. So like let's say that I have a student that is not necessarily comfortable with me moving on. Like I would do these activities sometimes in class and students would be like, you're going too fast or you're going too slow. So to kind of, have this compromise, I did an ed puzzle. So the students that are fast can just click on continue, and the students that need the repetition can click on rewatch, and then it'll go back to the section. So there's that. God, I sound horrible. All right, the next module is the national anthem. And again, there is a couple of bell ringers. So in this case, they would have to go on Quizlet and in their notebooks, because they're supposed to have notebooks. They are to copy down the vocab in Spanish and English. So they click on it and they can play games. I might say like, oh, if you're done, play a game, like do flashcards or something. And again, I have not paid for this yet, but I will at the beginning of school year because I do think that it's beneficial to have that. The next thing would be an introduction to the national anthem. So this reading is just talks about the importance of knowing what the national anthem means. So a lot of people, obviously, like for the American national anthem, like they can sing it, but how many of us actually sit there and think about what it actually means? So this article kind of talks about that. So students would click on the link and then they would go through on Google Forms and answer, I think it's about 5 questions. So the last one is an open-ended question. So they're supposed to talk about, their opinions. So, the question is, do you believe that Americans know the true meaning of their national anthem? And they're supposed to explain their response. That will lead us to the next day, which would be another bell ringer, and this is a discussion question. So again, it's kind of a continuation of that, and it's asking, is it important to know the meaning of the national anthem of our country? Why or why not? They have to respond in 100 words or less, and then respond to another one of their peers in about 50 words or less. After that, we have Flipgrid. So again, this is still a continuation of that. They would click on this, and then it would bring them. The magic password is Heritage1, no spaces, and then it would bring you here. Obviously, again, I don't have anything on here or any responses because it's not time for school yet. But here they're supposed to talk about in 3 minutes. So in the maximum of 3 minutes and a minimum of 1 minute, they have to respond to whether they think that Americans truly know the meaning of the national anthem. Again, this is kind of like a hot topic right now, especially with the players. And I know that, or the players that take it, and I know that this is something that I'm going to have to be careful with, but I think that it is kind of important because we just memorize things, and it just goes back to their education. Like, do we want students to just memorize, or do we want them to be able to use the skills? So again, this hopefully will help with that. And then I asked them, do your parents know their national anthem? Do you think that they know the actual meaning of it? And then do you think that it's important to just know what our national anthem means, why or why not? So there's that. Let me get rid of some of these. Okay, then we have a little bit more of information about the national anthem, and this is another listening activity. So I did a screencast on this. The students click on the the video here, they listen to it and they answer a couple of questions. This one is also worth 5 points. So just a quick little formative. And then we go into we would go into the students learning the Mexican national anthem. So they've been hearing all about it, but now they'll actually go through and learn it. And I just am gonna basically have them copy it in their notebook. So we are going to start off with the first two. We're going to start off with el coro y la estrofa uno. And they have to copy this down on their notebook with some spaces in between each line. They're supposed to translate it to what they think it means in English, and then as a class we'll go over it together. And this will pretty much be their bell ringers for the next week or so. The last thing that I have is the indigenous languages of Mexico, and the focus is Nahuatl. So the first one starts off with words that we frequently use that we don't know come from this indigenous language. So if we click on this, so I have a Google Doc here, and they're basically supposed to go through the list that's here, and if they know a word, they're supposed to highlight it. So the two words that I figured most people would know would be tomate and chicle. We know that tomate is a cognate, so it looks like tomato. It is tomato. Chicle, you might not know, like it's obviously not a cognate, but if you've ever been to Mexico, for example, or just like 26th Street, you might have someone selling chicle, which is chewing gum. All of these words come from that indigenous language or have the linguistic influences, so I decided to include them on here. So they're supposed to do that, and then the next thing would be to watch the video, which is back here. They click on it, they watch it, and this is a video again discussing the different influences that this language has had in Spanish, which is really cool. So then they go back onto this document, and I obviously can just attach the link on here, but they're still going to have to click in and out of it. So they will go here, answer the couple of questions, and the last thing is they have to go back and actually find out the meaning of these words. A lot of these words they'll definitely recognize if they're Spanish speakers. If they don't recognize them, it's totally fine. They could just search them online. So then a little bit more about the language, and this starts off with a couple of the vocab words. So they have to go through and find the meanings of these words. There's a couple of pre-reading questions that they have to answer, and then there is a link to a article that they have to read and then go through and answer some questions. And here they would just obviously highlight the A, B, C, or D, whatever their answer is, followed with a couple of more questions. The last one would be el idioma del hogar, which is the language that's spoken at home. And it talks, again, this is kind of similar to the last one. So there's, this one is like what's a PDF, but it's supposed to be like an infographic. Because their students are supposed to be heritage learners, we want them to read or to get a lot of the informational text or authentic text, and get comfortable with them, because once they get to AP Spanish, which is obviously the ultimate goal, we want them to feel comfortable reading something. They use, or the AP Spanish language and culture tends to use a lot of infographics, so we want them to obviously utilize that. So they would click on this, again, answer the couple of questions. This one's a little bit more detailed because it does bring like their own experiences, like tell me about a legend that your family tells with frequency. Like one of them, as you probably have all heard, is La Llorona, the weeping woman. So that would be a perfect opportunity for them to talk about that, because that's telling that story reinforces the language in Spanish, or I'm sorry, at their home in Spanish. So that's what that is from. That is basically it. I definitely went over 7 minutes and I did not want to. I'm so sorry. But this is like the third time I've recorded this, and this is the shortest it's been. So I hope that this is enough information. I will definitely invite you all onto this class. If you want to look through it or look through my materials, feel free. They're obviously all in Spanish though, and I did not translate them, so I'm sorry. Thank you, and have an excellent day.